Welcome to the Stranger Conversations podcast, where we explore the lives and lessons of those around us, hidden in plain sight. I'm your host, Tay Jones. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Stranger Conversations podcast. Guys, this is the first official episode of the show, and today we have our first official guest. Her name is Katelyn Toole, a veterinary nurse who has spent most of her adult life helping animals, working closely with tigers, lions, and giraffes. She's also a motorcycle enthusiast, a mother, and much more. It was great to get to know Katelyn a bit while we took a walk through her life and adventures. I think you'll find her passion and knowledge of animals as fascinating as I did, and I think you're going to learn a little bit about life and parenting as well. Let's take a little listen to some of the things Katelyn shared during our conversation.
I got married when I was 19 to a Marine that I had known for a few months. I would have never had the opportunity if I hadn't have, married that jerk in Hawaii and then ended up in Alabama. I flew out to North Carolina, and in total, we did 14,000 miles on a Harley over 2.5 months. My boss calls us and says, hey, there's actually a bear cub that needs to come back to California. And also, there's also a baby alligator, and we need you to bring it back. So we pulled over in the back of an Arco gas station, and we're driving in a minivan, and we have a bear and alligator in the back. Like, this is ultimate Florida man adventure. I'm like, well, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. How do we know what to name it? So we Googled how to sex an alligator. How do you tell if an alligator is a boy or a girl? We as zookeepers are generally better with animals than people, so we're bad at communicating what is really going on to the public. So I don't blame the public really for hating us. It does not pay well. I will always struggle financially. You always respect that they are always wild. They doesn't matter how much you feed them, doesn't matter how much time you spend with them. You can't love the wild out of them. That's what Mrs. Carol Baskin doesn't quite know. An animal will never lie to you. An animal will never deceive you or double back or make what you see is what you get. And so being able to focus, I think, and take in the moment and not be, impatient and frustrated about the rest of what else is going on, I think that definitely is something that's helped with my parenting. That was part of the problem, was I was working so much that I was not able to spend time with my daughter. And she's learning the value of hard work, and it pays off, and she has a good work ethic, which whatever she decides to do, she can take that good work ethic and apply it to, whatever career she wants to do. Hunting is so important to the sustainability of an environment. Over there at the lion farm, looking at everything, and he says, who am I to say that this creature is more magnificent than the cow who's being farmed for our needs and our uses? The quality of my work is the quality of their life. Trust me, I have spent more hours crying over these animals than you ever would consider. Completely freeing, because the rest of the world does not exist in that moment. And you get the weight of the world lifted off your shoulders, and you get to focus on what's in front of you. When a wild animal looks at you and chooses to spend time with you of their own will, this completely wild animal says, hey, I want to spend time with you. There's literally nothing like it. With animals, it's just love. Your actions and your job and your career has an impact. And I think it's important for people to be invested in that. How are you going to change the world, whether your world is, your tiny corner in, the bottom 2/3 of Southeast Napa, or your world is the actual world?
All right, guys, I think you're going to like this episode. Now let's get on with the conversation. Hi, is this Katelyn?
Yes.
Hey, Katelyn, this is Tay with the Stranger Conversations podcast. How you doing?
Good. How are you? I had you saved on my calendar so I wouldn't forget.
Oh, okay, good. Good. I'm glad you answered.
How's your day been going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. How about you?
Oh, it's good. I just got back from my daughter's first progress report at her new school, so that was good. She got all A's and B's.
Nice.
So
Well, yeah.
good.
Yeah, I'm sure they're probably doing some homeschool stuff, yeah, or are they actually going to school?
So I found the loophole, and I actually sent her to the school. I went to Seventh-day Adventist school, and I sent her to my school that I used to go to. It's private. And so they actually are able to go 4 days a week.
Oh, wow.
In class, and it's because it's smaller and they can kind of regulate things. And it's been amazing. She's loving it. She's doing a really good job. So
that's great.
She's in third grade. So
Yeah. I actually have a third grader myself, but he's not really going to school. You know, we're trying
doing Zoom stuff.
Yeah, struggling through the homeschool stuff.
Yeah, we did that for a little bit, and it sucks, but
Yep.
Yeah,
I think it is everybody's life for the moment, anyway.
Yeah, so at least everybody gets it now, because everybody's doing it. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're live and recording on the show.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right. So I know no pressure, but Katelyn, you are the very first guest on this show.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yes, you are the first official guest. So this will be episode 2, which is our first official episode.
I texted all my friends and told them I was nervous. So.
Well, yeah, nothing to be worried about. But as kind of the whole purpose of this show is to talk to strangers, people that I've never met, and
right.
To try to learn a little bit about their lives and any lessons that they may have.
Well, I'm definitely strange, so you got that part down.
Hey, perfect. That's great. That's what the show is all about.
Good.
And so one of the things when you signed up, because some of our listeners might not know because they haven't signed up for an episode yet. Well, first of all, I want to welcome you to your episode of the show. Right. So when you signed up, that there is a very small portion that if you want, you can add a little blurb about, if there's anything that you want us to know before the show. So one of the things that you put in there was that you wanted to share with people about, just some of the works you've done over your life with helping animals throughout the world.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I should put a lot or a little and just let things go how they go.
Yeah, I think that's kind of more the point, is just to let things go as they go. But it's good to have a little bit of a background on kind of what you're interested in talking about and sharing with people. So we will get to that, I promise. But I would like to get to know Katelyn a little bit. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So how I found out about you was through my friend Samantha from the gym. You're related to her somehow. So here in Napa. So I grew up in Napa. Like I said earlier, I grew up super religious, Seventh-day Adventist. Like, we didn't eat meat, didn't go.
Oh, really?
We were not allowed to dance or wear jewelry or anything like that. So that was
very footloose.
Yes, it was very footloose. And even in Napa, so some people don't know the history of Napa, that there was no dancing allowed in the bars in Napa for several years.
Really?
And then there's a bar in Napa, Henry's, that's now closed, that they actually had a sign up that was from back when it literally was illegal to dance in bars in Napa.
Wow.
So Napa really is like the footloose town, randomly.
That's funny. Yeah, I never knew that. I'd spent some time there myself when I was younger, but I was not aware of that fact.
Now you know. Yeah. So I grew up here and just, I don't know, regular childhood. And then I found a life hack and went to college in Hawaii, and studied animal science out there. And there's a scholarship that makes it so that I pretty much paid the same as I would have for in-state tuition for California.
Okay.
So I went out there and went to school. It was terrifying, hard to focus, all of that. And part of the fun part of my crazy life is I got married when I was 19.
Okay.
To a Marine that I had known for a few months.
Yeah.
And ended up from there in Alabama, because that's where he was from. So
you've really gone all over the board about where you've lived and everything.
And Texas, and and then before I went to college, I traveled to Madagascar to study if you've seen you have kids, so you've seen the Madagascar, the movie.
Oh, absolutely,
right?
yes.
So we like to move it.
Yep.
So the bad guys in the movie are called Fusa,
mm-hmm.
and they look like a cross between a cat and a dog, but they're actually part of the mongoose family, and they live on the island of Madagascar.
Now, is that what the King Julian is in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
King Julian is a ring-tailed lemur, which they're endangered also, but the Fusa are more endangered, and they're the ones they look like a cat. They're brown. So I went to Madagascar. I found a research project, and so when I turned 18, I flew there by myself to go live in the forest and research them for a month or two. And I did not realize it at the time that Madagascar is as far away as you can get from Northern California and still be on planet Earth. So my poor parents, I sent them a message like, screw you, I'm out of here. And went as far as I could literally get from them.
Yeah. And I mean, were you running from your parents, like kind of that religious background, or?
I don't think it was quite as conscious as that. I think, actually, if anything, I could thank my family for it. Like my great grandmother had been a Sierra Club member, and she passed away. And I used the money that I got from inheritance from her to be able to take the trip.
Wow.
And even like my mom super supported me being a crazy animal person. So, I don't think it was quite that, but I think I was definitely ready to expand my horizons a little bit.
Yeah. So you went, when you said it was hard to focus back in Hawaii, which I can only imagine. It's funny because I've been to basically every state in the United States except for Hawaii. I've had a lot of connections in Hawaii. I've just never gotten out there for some crazy reason, but I've always wanted to go. But I could see how, growing up with some of the background that you had moving to Hawaii, I think that would be, you kind of had some free reign and get to enjoy yourself a little bit on the beach and everything.
Right. Like my mom couldn't just I drove down for the weekend,
Right.
So,
and maybe that part was on purpose too, right? You're kind of, you're ocean locked out there. You can
Yeah. Like she has to buy a whole plane ticket to come visit.
Exactly.
So I sound like I'm giving her a hard time, but no, she's great.
Yeah. But, so you were married to a Marine. Are you still married to the Marine?
No, that was my first ex-husband.
Gotcha. Okay. How many ex-husbands have there been?
There have been two.
Two. Okay. Are you currently married now?
No.
Okay, so there's not a future ex-husband.
There probably.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. Well, you mentioned you had kids. How many kids do you have?
Just the one daughter. She is 8. Her name is Emily.
Nice.
So she's she's a good one. I think I'll keep her.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad it worked out because you don't get a choice. I actually had 3 sisters growing up, so I know how it is with the sisters and moms and daughters. That 12 to 18 mark is a little bit sketchy, but if it's anything like my family, as soon as that 18th birthday comes around, they move out of the house, they'll be your best friend.
Right. No, she's great. She's super smart. She loves animals. Any of my friends that have met her knows that she has a really quick wit, and the things that come out of her mouth is something like a 25-year-old would say. So
that's great. Those are the things, like when you're a kid, when you see a kid like that who has a lot of that, like you said, that quick wit, those are the things you can't really teach them. It's kind of those good life skills, when you see a kid that can converse with adults very well. It's always a good sign. So you must be doing something right.
Right. Yeah. She's a good one. But yeah, so the Marine husband took me back to Alabama, which was fun. I actually liked Alabama. I'm, obviously a country person kind of. And so, but things didn't work out. Too. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Things just didn't really work out when you only know somebody for a couple months and marry them. Sometimes you're like, oh, wait, no.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
But I did have the opportunity then. I was in actually randomly the town that Yellow Wolf is from. And who's, whatever rapper guy.
Oh, I
And
was like, I've heard that name before, but I'm
yeah,
not sure who that was.
yeah,
Okay.
he's from Gadsden, Alabama, and that's where I was living, which is the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But there's also a place called Tigers for Tomorrow out there. That's a tiger and big cat preserve that does rescue. They have about 150 animals out there, and they get to come there and live out the rest of their lives from wherever else they were, like private owners, or there's plenty of good zoos, but like a bad zoo or a traveling circus or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit of experience volunteering at a zoo, and I had worked on my degree. And so I applied there. So I ended up being a big cat, tiger, lion, and bear keeper.
Really?
Keeper, trainer, whatever, behaviorist, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I got to raise some cubs and some bear cubs, and we would spend all day feeding and taking care of all the animals out there. So
wow, that's amazing.
I would have never had the opportunity if I hadn't have, married that jerk in Hawaii and then ended up in Alabama.
Well, and you kind of followed up with your passion and your degree. I assume. Did you get your degree in the animal science?
In Hawaii, yeah.
Okay. And then I've actually never seen the show Tiger King, so this is something totally different, right? This is not the Tiger King place that everybody talks about.
So no, this place is not. This is it. It is a rescue. However, my boss was friends with Joe and Doc and all of them, and I have spent time with all of them.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're like the Tiger Queen then.
Yeah, maybe. I like the lion, they're my favorite, but and actually he is a very gregarious, funny, hilarious, nice, kind person. He just lives in a different reality than we all do.
That's what it sounds like. I feel guilty because I've never actually watched that show. People say, "Oh, you have to watch it," and then some people say, "Don't ever watch it."
I have been trying to tell people this story for 8 years, and no one wants to ever listen. And I'm like, you guys, this is crazy.
So how much time did you spend with the people on the show?
Not a lot. Just a couple conferences down in Florida.
Okay.
A couple dinners and like over the weekend here and there. I haven't been to their facilities. And definitely those types of places I don't endorse just because they kind of put on a front, and they are cub petting. And a lot of times the animals do get recycled through there.
Gotcha.
And it's definitely important. Like when people go overseas, you go to Mexico or whatever, you're like, oh my gosh, a cute tiger cub, and I get their lion cub for $20. I can cuddle it and take a picture. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those videos on YouTube, and they don't always work out as well.
And even for me, I'm still like, yeah, I still want to hold it, and it's so hard not to. But when people do that, they are perpetuating the program of these people breed the animals and they have them as cubs. And then when they get bigger, they end up in someone's backyard, not being cared for, or they're euthanized. So just the whole cub petting culture is something that, and then that's where a lot of our animals would come from, is they were, not taken care of well. And then they stopped making money for their owners. And so they were discarded. And a lot of times they would be killed. But when we step in, we're able to take them to this facility and let them live out their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said, they kind of end up in people's yards and stuff. So I actually spent a lot of my youth up in Alaska, and they kind of the same thing, the garbage bears. There's a lot of regulations against, when you can put your garbage out, et cetera, because once the bears kind of find out that, hey, this can has food in it, then they kind of stop hunting on their own and scavenging on their own, and they just come into town. Yeah. And then of course, then they end up having to be put down when they're wandering in.
It's a bummer. So we had some bears also, and bears are actually hilarious.
Yeah.
They're very smart. They have hilarious senses of humor. We had one grizzly bear who liked to eat his grapes one at a time with his claws.
It's like Julius Caesar just hanging out in his cage.
Yeah. And there was a time I went down to Florida for a training to do some falconry work. And my roommate and coworker at the time we were there, my boss calls us and says, hey, there's actually a bear cub that needs to come back to California. And also, there's also a baby alligator, and we need you to bring it back. So we said, okay. I had never dealt with a baby bear or alligator before, but
I'm guessing the only thing I know about that is you probably want them in two different pens, and that's about the extent of my knowledge.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, you can go ahead and quit your day job.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm ready.
So we went and picked up this cub, which was just an unfortunate thing where the lady had these animals. She did not have enough money to separate them. So they bred, and then she had a cub, and she didn't have money to raise it. And so anyway, so we took him, and we have him like in a dog crate. He weighs probably like 25, 30 pounds. And then we have the baby alligator in a separate dog crate that's probably 2 or 3 feet long.
Okay.
And we're like thinking about names for them, because I'm like a 21, 22-year-old girl at this point, like, oh, what name should we name it? And then we're like, with the alligator, I'm like, well, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
How do we know what to name it? So we Googled how to sex an alligator. How do you tell if an alligator is a boy or a girl?
Yeah, well, do tell. I have no idea.
They're not sexually dimorphic, so that means that the male and female look different from each other.
Okay.
Like a deer. The male has antlers, the female does not. They're sexually dimorphic. Alligators, not so much. So you tell by one way. You take your finger and put it up in their cloaca, or their little vent area where they would defecate from. And if you feel around and you feel something, it's a male. And if you don't feel something, it's a female.
Wow. So you said that's one way. What's the second way? Because I think maybe I'd like to try the second way.
I don't know the second way.
Oh, you don't know the second way? Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the only way.
Mm-hmm. So we pulled over in the back of an Arco gas station.
So you're driving this baby bear and alligator?
We're driving in a minivan, and we have a bear and alligator in the back. Like, this is ultimate Florida man adventure.
I would love to see you get pulled over and just explain what's going on.
we had permits. We were completely legal. But yes, so we pulled over behind the Arco, and we did Rochambeau of who was going to do the exploring.
Yeah.
Me or Tia.
That's fair, though, right? I mean, you can't deny the Rochambeau. So who? So I guess if you lost, then you're the one sticking the finger in there to figure out if it's a male or female.
Yeah.
So was that you?
I don't usually raffles, things like that. I don't usually win. So yeah.
Okay.
No, anyway, so her name is Alexis.
So it was a girl. Okay.
It was a girl.
Alexis. All right.
Alexis. Yes. So we did that. And then we took her back up to the preserve, and I harness trained her and I target trained her. So she was able to be an ambassador for the kids and people coming to visit, and they could see her out and walking and moving instead of, most of the time you go to see an alligator somewhere and you're like, is that a log or is that it?
Exactly, yeah. Or they're all just hiding and you never see them. So I want to step back, though, because you said you harness trained them. Like, you were taking this alligator on a walk?
When she was little, yeah.
Really?
So I put her in a harness just so I could have a little control over her. And then, so operant conditioning is positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement type of things. So you can ask them to do something. When they do it, you do a bridge, you reinforce them, you give them a treat. You can do this with your coworkers. You can do this with your kids. You can do it with anybody. It's nothing special.
Yeah.
So I would have her on the harness, and we would also take her swimming in the pool with us. We had like a saltwater pool.
Really? So, I mean, do you lock the mouth shut somehow? Or
No.
do you just trust that she's, not hungry?
Just pay attention to her behavior.
Really?
And get to know her. And it's the same thing. So we're free contact with the tigers and the lions as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you always respect that they are always wild. Yeah. They doesn't matter how much you feed them, doesn't matter how much time you spend with them. You can't love the wild out of them. That's what Mrs. Carol Baskin doesn't quite know. So it's okay. So that's how we're able to interact with them is, yes, we do have the relationship, but always trust that they're always wild. And you always have a backup watching the animal, like, oh, hey, just so you know, so-and-so flicked his tail just now.
Yeah.
Oh, he's licking his lips. Oh, he moved his ear funny, or he's distracted, or there's something scary going on over here.
So kind of the same with most animals or even people. You're just reading the body language and
Yeah.
you're just reading the room.
Yeah, reading the room. Yes. So just listening to what they have to say, and if they're not having a good day, not pushing it, just being like, okay, I will see you tomorrow.
Yeah. And so you also mentioned something besides the harness training. You said target training. What exactly is that?
So you can do that with any animal. I did it also with giraffes up at Safari West. So you have something, a tennis ball at the end of a stick is a lot of times what people use. And the animal is just habituated to, when I touch that, I get a treat. So you can use that for a million different things. You can use it to move an animal from place to place. When I did it with the giraffes, I taught them to come forward, and then they would hold their nose to it and keep their nose still. And then we habituated them to actually having their blood drawn voluntarily. So they could leave at any time, but they chose to stay and get their treats instead.
Really?
So we're able to do some different blood testing things. Actually, we could bank their blood and do stem cells, create stem cells from it, and bank the stem cells so that we can use it across the nation with other zoos and aquariums that have these animals. And like if there's a critical baby or something, then we're like, oh yeah, we've got blood for you. We've got stem cells we can treat, and we share it kind of as a whole group.
Yeah, interesting. I never thought about that. Like, I mean, we have blood banks and those types of things, so it's kind of that same thing for the animal world as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got this whole underground zookeeper world going on.
Yeah. What did you name the bear? I haven't found that.
So there were already two young bears named Basil and Sage. They were black bears that were at Tigers for Tomorrow. So we named this one Pepper.
Okay.
So Pepper, Basil, and Sage.
Wow.
Get the theme, the spice theme.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
And where were you taking both of these animals? So from Florida, where was the end goal?
Florida back to Alabama.
Oh, back to Alabama. Okay.
They were being rescued. Yeah.
Gotcha.
They just needed new homes.
Yeah.
So.
And how long does an alligator live?
I mean, it seems like they could live forever. They're like dinosaurs.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure how long they live.
So Alexis is probably still alive. I mean, what year was that?
Oh, absolutely. That was probably 10 years ago. I mean, they probably 50, 60.
Yeah.
That's total guess. I actually really don't know much about reptiles, but I do know they have incredible antibodies in their blood, and they're able to fight off infection really well. Like if they lose a leg or something in a fight in that nasty water that they live in a lot of times, they're able to fight off the infection. And some people are studying their blood to figure out those antibodies and use that in human medicine.
Wow, interesting.
But I don't know how old they go.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's almost like a parrot, where you have to like will it to your children if you had it as a pet. Yeah. They just live forever.
Yeah. Well, and again, important for people to not be like, let's get an alligator in the pet trade, because like you just said, you're going to be dealing with it for a long time.
Yeah. So. Well, besides having to stop on the side of the road and sexing an alligator, how did the rest of that trip go?
The rest was okay. It wasn't too long of a drive. We did have to stop occasionally. Pepper was being bottle fed, so we had to figure out how to do that. So every couple hours we had to stop, and we found out that when he gets finished with he would eat 2 bottles at a time, and they're specially formulated carnivore milk diet. Well, actually omnivore. When he's finished with his first bottle, if you don't get the second bottle into his mouth fast enough, he will bite the crap out of his arm.
Really?
So we learned that. So that was good to know.
Did you have to like stop on the side of the road and let him go to the bathroom, like with a little harness, or the people passing you guys just looking like, what the heck is going on?
No, that would be a little risky. So they just had their crates, and They had enough room to move around, and it was only about a 7 or 8 hour ride, so
Yeah.
it was okay. So
Yeah, interesting.
hmm
Wow, you said something else in there about doing some work with falcons, doing some falconry, and that has always fascinated me. I mean, it's such an interesting sport, that these people do with these birds.
yeah, yeah, that I kind of touched on that a little. I didn't learn much about it. It's funny, I have a bunch of tattoos, and I always say I hate birds and they freak me out, and I can never tell what they're thinking, and they just make me nervous.
Yeah.
But I have 3 separate bird tattoos on my body, and so people who know me, they're like, "You say you hate birds, but you have them all over you."
Yeah,
So,
I have kind of a weird thing with birds too, but I just don't like it when their wings are in and they kind of are walking around with no arms. That kind of freaks me out a little bit. But I'm okay once they open their arms, or when their wings spread a little bit.
I like arms. That's good. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and a while ago, you said you ended up in Texas as well. Was that dealing with animals, or was that just traveling?
I guess that's hard. That was on the way to, before we ended up back in Alabama. When my ex first got out of the military, he did underwater welding school, and then
wow.
we were in Texas for a minute. And I worked at a vet clinic there, and it was fun. I like Texas, but
Yeah.
no, yeah, and it wasn't for very long that we were there. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. You.
but
Go ahead.
oh no, that's all.
Oh.
That's all there is about Texas. I turned 21 in Texas. They didn't even ID me that day, and it was a bummer.
Yeah, all that work for nothing, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You had mentioned too, your mom was okay when you went to school because that was kind of your passion. You loved animals, and you also mentioned about your daughter really loves animals. So that was kind of your thing as a kid. You've just always been interested in animals, and
Yeah. I guess that's true. People ask me all the time how I ended up in this career, and I didn't grow up in the country or anything. We lived in the suburbs, but my mom let me take horseback riding lessons when I was a kid from a very young age, and we had a lot of dogs. We just kind of, I don't know, I guess. So yeah, the horses were a big part of it, and I showed horses for a long time. I was
really?
that weird kid in school, the one, the one that always has like a horse binder, a horse
Totally.
feeder, like everything is horses.
Yeah.
And then when I was in high school, I did go to that private school, but I took some classes at Vintage at the public school, and I took farm classes where I was able to raise a pig. And so I did that for a couple of years and learned a lot of stuff out there. And that's actually when I took it to the auction fair thing. You take letters to people to say, hey, come buy my pig at auction. This is why I'm a good student and I've worked so hard and this. And I took one. My mom's an ER nurse, and so she knows all the first responders in town. And so I took one letter to the fire department, and I took one letter to the police department, and let them each know that I had done that. So then they came to the auction ready to throw down against each other.
Oh, nice. That was a good tactic.
And so my dad was in sales also. So
there you go.
So then they just bid each other up, and it got like, I sold this pig for like $2,500.
Wow.
And then was able to buy my first car. So
that's amazing.
It worked out, but yeah, I was able to learn about animals that way. And my mom, we were always outside. We were always on trips. We were always looking at stuff, poking bugs and that type of thing. So she always encouraged us to do those things.
That's good. And actually, who won the bid? Was it the police officers or the firemen?
I think it was the fire department.
Fire department. I wonder what they did with the pig. They had a little fire pig.
Oh, I'm sure
they had a little barbecue.
Yeah, for sure. They probably split it up and shared it. Yeah. Because everybody knows firefighters just spend so much time in the firehouse cooking.
That's right.
That's always the thing. The police officers give them a hard time that they're just lazy. But
yeah,
not true.
Well, that's what they say. The reason that the fire department, the police department exists because firemen need heroes also. That's kind
Yes.
of the thing,
Yes, yes. But hey, it wouldn't make a bad husband. 'Cause it means he can be good in the kitchen. So.
Yeah, that's right. And they get a lot of time off too. That's another amazing thing about being a fireman. Yeah.
I started to go to the fire academy or the fire explorers also. It was something I was always interested in. But I didn't like the hierarchy of everything, so
yeah,
I didn't end up pursuing that. But I always thought it was a cool thing.
Yeah, they deal so much with the medical side of it, as opposed to the fire stuff. But I've always thought about it myself. But yeah, just the medical stuff never interested me.
Yeah. Well, and I'm okay with that. Like I do all of those things for animals now because I'm also a veterinary nurse. That's actually what I'm doing currently.
Okay, so you're still in the field of animals.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, fast forwarding through lots of stuff, I was at Safari West for several years as the lead giraffe keeper there. We had several giraffes, and I was there through the 2017 fires, and
wow,
that was crazy. We put out the fire ourselves. So
where is this Safari West?
Safari West is halfway between Calistoga and Santa Rosa.
Oh, okay. So it's in the Napa area then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a 400 oh gosh, my dog's barking.
Yep.
It's a 400-acre preserve that has about 1,000 animals, mostly African hoofstock, and they're kind of all on open range.
Wow, I had no idea that was there.
It's like heaven on earth. It's really, really an amazing, special place. And there's cabins, people can stay there. So we had the 2017 fires, and they actually burned through the property.
Really?
And the property, or the owner, he stayed. Everyone else had to leave, and he stayed overnight. And he fought the fire himself with a hose and trucks and crazy things. Wow. And then the next day, a few of us were able to kind of sneak back in, and we used we had a water truck and everything, and kind of used that to help. And we did not lose a single animal.
Wow.
Which was amazing. So.
Wow. So giraffes, that'd be a very interesting life. Man, interesting. One of the things, or excuse me, not one of the things, but you talk about the Safari West. I didn't even know that was there. Is that like a privately funded adventure?
It is privately owned. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So Peter Lang is the owner, and he kind of started out as just a private collector. He actually worked. His father worked in Hollywood with a lot of animals, and he was down in LA. And then he kind of got a few different types of antelope, and he liked them. And then he moved up to Northern California. He was using them originally just for grazing. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of added on. And then he married the wife. His wife was the curator of birds from the San Francisco Zoo. And so they wanted to they just kept having their friends over to see all these animals. And so they wanted to create something educational and positive. Yeah. For the animals and for the people. They're not a rescue. Some people think that they are. They are a breeding facility, but what's great about them is that they work with what's called the SSP, mm-hmm. or the Species Survival Program. Okay. And so what that is genetic databases that are shared across the United States of helping keep these species genetically diverse and breeding them appropriately. So that, there's a type of antelope called the Adex or the Adax, okay. that actually became extinct in the wild because of habitat loss, poaching, just general hunting, all kinds of environmental issues. And because there was enough private owners and zoos across the world, they were actually able to use the captive animals to create a breeding population and reintroduce these animals back into the wild. Which is just, to me, so exciting that we are literally out here like saving the world quietly. Yeah. But because of the animals that we have in captivity and the genetic diversity that we have and the technology that we have, we can now responsibly reintroduce these animals back into the world, back into the wild, getting things balanced again the way that they're supposed to be. And it's one of the most exciting. I get all nerdy talking about it.
Yeah.
But,
And you still work there today?
I don't anymore.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I love working there. That was part of the problem, was I was working so much that I was not able to spend time with my daughter. And it's about an hour 15, hour 20 minutes one way to go out there. And we like the giraffes to stay out as long as possible during the day. So, a lot of times I was the first one there, and then the last one to leave. I was working 10 or 11 hours a day.
Yeah.
And plus the drive, and the pay is not great, but that's just the industry.
Yeah.
So
it's more of a passion industry. You get into that, and the pay is just a sideshow to what you're doing that you love.
And it's not all roses and butterflies and things. It's a really emotionally taxing job. Animals die, and especially when you have a breeding facility, it's just how it goes. Especially young animals in the wild, it's like 1 in 8 babies make it. In captivity, that number is 10 times. I mean, it's way higher, but still, sometimes babies don't make it, and then you bottle feed them, and you put your heart into them, and you take them home, and you nurse them, and they don't make it anyway, and so it can be very emotionally taxing. So it was multiple things. So I stepped away from there, and then I ended up at Six Flags for a little while with the tigers and the lions. Wow. But COVID, they shut down for obvious reasons. Yeah. And I was the newest baby hire, so I got laid off.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that I think in your bio or something that you are a big motorcycle person.
Yeah.
Are you a Harley person or street bike or all of it?
Well, I just love motorcycles in general. I've ridden Harleys, but I've never owned one. But I'm currently selling a sport touring motorcycle that I own, because that's kind of what I like to do. I like to just get out on the open road and go on some trips. But I'm hoping that next year I get like a Harley or an Indian, more of like a touring bike like that. Yeah. You ride?
Cool. Yeah. So I'm working on that, getting my own personal bike. But when I was laid off from Six Flags, I was seeing someone who rides. I mean, that's his whole life is riding. So I flew out to North Carolina, and in total, we did 14,000 miles on a Harley over 2.5 months.
Wow. Awesome.
And we went from North Carolina down to Key West, and then kind of across New Orleans, up through Texas, New Mexico, Sturgis, up the Black Hills, wow. Montana, everywhere. It was a lot.
Yeah, well, I'm jealous. That sounds amazing. And you were on the back the whole time?
Yeah, I was on the back. And we camped mostly as much as we could to try to be cost efficient and just kind of bums the whole time. And then, saw friends along the way. And if we knew a friend in a state, then we just kind of detour and stay with them for a couple of days and see people. And that's
kind of the beauty about the motorcycles. It's kind of I was just saying the other day, I remember the day where I finally bought something. I bought a couch, and I remember having that panic attack of wow, everything I own doesn't fit in my car anymore, like I'm an adult. And I think that's something about the motorcycles is that you can just hop on, take your tent and your sleeping bag and just go. You can be self-sufficient on that and just enjoy the wind in your face.
Yeah, no, it definitely is crazy. And you can go places other people can't go, like traffic even, or we ended up at Mount Rushmore for 4th of July, that whole thing. Yeah. And it would have been a pain in the ass. It would have been terrible, awful, whatever, worrying about things if we were in a car. But because we were just a motorcycle, we just kind of zipped through wherever and found a little spot to park and watch the fireworks, and it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Yeah. And you said are you still dating this guy?
No.
No, so no more trips. Now you need to get that one for yourself.
That's why I have to get my own bike now. I want to be I definitely learned that I love it. I love the community is amazing. Everybody that I've met is so open and they care about each other and they look out for each other. And no matter male, female, whatever, it's just, I feel like I have a lot of friends now in that community, but I want to be self-sufficient. I want to take care of myself. And I don't want to have to rely on somebody else for a hobby or a lifestyle that
Absolutely.
I want.
Yeah, like you said, everybody takes care of each other. That's I think one of my favorite parts about riding the motorcycle is passing other motorcyclists and giving, the little wave that you give. I love that. Sometimes you get some of the bike snobs and they're on a Harley or something. They won't wave at you if you don't have a Harley or something. But for the most part, they do. And if it's cold or if it's raining out, everybody kind of has that sense of compassion. They're waving like, hey, we're out here. This sucks.
Well, in Texas, you get that when you have a truck. You get the hand. Your hands are on the wheel, and you get the one finger wave.
Yeah, it's like kind of like the Jeep wave too.
I see you. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, you definitely have to get a motorcycle of your own.
I'm in the market. So
excellent.
Unemployment finally came through. So.
So I wanted to touch on something earlier with you growing up Seventh-day Adventist, and you said you don't eat meat. Are you still a vegetarian?
No, I definitely eat meat now. Over time, like in high school, I slowly started like easing into it.
Yeah.
I don't really remember how or what or why, but I would eat chicken, and then I started eating hamburgers, and then
you were hooked because hamburgers are amazing.
And then like seafood and stuff, I still was really weird about for a long time. But then when I went to Hawaii, I really ate sushi a lot. And then now it's like whatever. I think there's a place in town called La Taberna that they have like Spanish tapas and like those small plates. And the other day I went in there and had like squid a la plancha and crispy pig ears and
oh, wow. So you're adventurous. You're an adventurous eater.
Yeah, like lamb tartare or something. Like now it's whatever. It's free game. I'll try anything. If I don't like it, okay.
Yeah, and I was also curious. Growing up such an animal lover and being in the field with animals. What is your take on hunting? Are you for hunting or against hunting?
It's so important. Hunting is so important to the sustainability of an environment. If we didn't hunt deer, they would overpopulate. The predators are not prepared to have that many deer because there's not room to have that many predators right now for where they're at. So the deer would overpopulate. They would be sick. They would starve to death. They would get even more diseases. It's really, really, really important to the ecology of an area for hunting. It needs to be regulated. It needs to be done correctly. It needs to be done in season. But I am all about it and harvesting, and as long as somebody uses what they take, I think it's valuable.
Yeah.
I hate seeing poachers or, people who shoot bears for their bile duct or whatever, and that's it. That's disappointing. But I have a hero. His name's Kevin Richardson. He's like my modern day Steve Irwin. He does a lot of work with lions in Africa.
Yeah.
And he said something one day, actually, I think it was in his book I was reading. There are lion farms in Africa. There's something called canned hunting, where there's farms that grow lions for Americans to come over and shoot. Yeah. And these animals are in a fenced-in area, which, isn't really fair. So that's a little bit different. But they're grown to be these big, beautiful animals, and then they're quote unquote harvested. And, he's all about saving lions and all of that. But he's over there at the lion farm looking at everything, and he says, who am I to say that this creature is more magnificent than the cow who's being farmed for our needs and our uses? just because a cow is not majestic looking,
Mm-hmm.
does its life matter any more or any less than this lion? Just because when I look at it, I feel a certain way.
Yeah. So he went over there with a completely different mindset, but being over there and being a part of that, he's now introspectively kind of changing the way he thinks.
No, I mean, I think he was just having. I mean, he's from South Africa. He lives there and has his own preserve, but I think he was just trying to make a point of seeing it from that point of view. But on the other hand, these animals are not being raised humanely, so that's kind of the sticking point of it. But he was just kind of taking it in concept of, who are we to say which animal is deserving of our adoration, but one or the other, just because we have placed a certain value on it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting, but
yeah, I can definitely see that thought, and I can see, the other point, like you said, the sticking point. As long as they're being, raised humanely, I guess, and treated fairly.
Yes, which is hard to regulate, and it's probably not going to happen because of these people are just wanting to make money.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I've a lot of people in my family hunt and everything, but I was never into it. My dad has an identical twin brother, and his twin and all of their kids, they were really big into it, but my father was never really big into hunting, so I never got into it. But it is something I've always wanted to do. I mean, I really enjoy the outdoors and being outside, but one of the things that have really stopped me is that my wife, she's really picky about like her meats and everything, and I think she really likes the clinical version of the meat wrapped in cellophane at the store, even though nice in
that paper package.
I think it's better, to get out there, actually hunt for your food, harvest your own food, and feed your family and use everything. But I know that my wife won't actually eat the food. If I shot a deer or an elk, she would shy away from that, and that's one of the reasons I'm like, well, I'm not going to just go kill the animal for no reason.
Right.
So that's one big reason that I've never got into it, because I just figure it's great for other people, but maybe it's just not for my family at the moment.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and there's definitely, like you said, the clinical side of it. It's easier when you're detached from things, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like the animals that I have personally raised, I prefer to pass them on to other people. I don't mind doing the processing. I can process them myself, but the actual eating of them, I prefer to send them to other people from like animals that I know personally.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So they never give your food a name, I guess,
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's hard, and I've had to euthanize plenty of animals in the moment, and it's one of those things I take it as, it's a part of my responsibility, and if I can do it well, then that's better.
Yeah.
And one of our biggest, like, many of my friends that are in the industry, it's not my quote at all, but what we like to say is, the quality of my work is the quality of their life,
Yeah.
So
no, that's beautiful. Yeah.
I get to go home at the end of the day. But this, how I clean their pen, how I feed them, how I medicate them, how I observe them, how we give enrichment all the time to make their lives better, to stimulate natural behaviors, to make sure that all their needs are met in every single way. At the end of the day, though, I go home and they are there. That's their entire life. And then I come back from the world and that's where they're at. So I take that very personally in making sure that their life is full and fulfilled, and that they get everything that they need, their needs are met. So it's just, and including death, and making sure that if they were to decline or be ill or be sick, or if something were to happen, that I make sure that is given to them properly, and that they get the respect that they deserve in that way too, whether they're a food animal or, in a zoo or whatever it is. So, yeah,
well, that's a great outlook on it. And, you definitely put a lot of time into it. And it sounds like you kind of got out of that, to kind of take care of the most important animal in your life, your daughter, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could see, with all the work that you've done over the years and everything, I think that at least in me, just listening to you talk, do you think that that's kind of helped you become a better parent?
Yeah, I think, I'm able to be empathetic of her, I never wanted to, like, never planned to have kids, it's just kind of something that happened. And that's a whole nother side story, but
they always are, right?
But and so I was like, holy shit, how, I don't even like kids,
Yeah.
and I still say that I like mine, and I'm figuring it out. I like today we had our parent teacher conference, and it was great. And there's, I'm like, okay, we're doing good. This is good. Everything's okay. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll just keep doing what we're doing. So, I mean, I would say yes. I think it gives us, my animal things, it gives me patience. And even so, something when I'm working with my animals, you have to be in the moment. You can't be thinking about the fight you had with your boyfriend, this morning before you got in the car. You can't be thinking about being hungry, or, my leg hurts, or I can't, I don't want to go to the dentist after work today, or whatever. You have to be like, I'm sitting here staring down a giraffe, asking it to move, please. And
yeah.
I have to be paying attention and in the moment and aware of my surroundings and aware of what's going on, and completely freeing, because the rest of the world does not exist in that moment. And you get the weight of the world lifted off your shoulders, and you get to focus on what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should find something that does that for them. Riding a motorcycle is another one. You must pay attention. You cannot be wandering and worrying about things. You have to be in the moment. So I think I've been able to do that with my daughter, when she's having a complete meltdown, or she's telling me a funny story, or whatever it is, I'm able to.
Or the same funny story 10 times in a row. Yeah.
Or the one funny story that lasts for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes, wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And so being able to focus, I think, and take in the moment, and not be, impatient and frustrated about the rest of what else is going on. I think that definitely is something that's helped with my parenting.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've picked up a lot of life lessons through your work with animals. I mean, is this something, have you ever regretted it, or is this something that you wouldn't change for the world?
I would never do anything else. I don't know what else I would do, because I've literally only ever worked with animals, and I feel like I owe it to them, because, not to make myself sound important or anything, but it's something I'm very good at, and I'm realizing that other people just aren't. And so I feel like I would be taking away from them if I chose to do something else, that would be very selfish of me. But then I get the dichotomy of, sometimes I feel very selfish because I enjoy this so much, and it does not pay well. I will always struggle financially. That's just part of it. And it's like, I'm on zookeeper groups on Facebook. That's just a running joke. Like, the things that we do and the conditions we work in and the pay that we get is just laughable.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when a wild animal looks at you and chooses to spend time with you of their own will, this completely wild animal says, hey, I want to spend time with you. There's literally nothing like it. Like, yeah, you're right. That part I wouldn't trade for the world. When a lion comes over and lays down next to me and just starts licking his paw and just chooses to be near me at that time, like, I can't describe it. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Yeah. And I feel lucky that I can give these opportunities to my daughter also. She's been around crazy stuff already. She got to come to Safari West with me plenty of times, and she's learning the value of hard work, and it pays off, and she has a good work ethic, which whatever she decides to do, she can take that good work ethic and apply it to, whatever career she wants to do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things for kids to learn, which is sad, in today's world, that is something I feel like is lacking in a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong. She loves her TikTok videos too.
Oh yeah.
She's a great, I am not, because, well, again, back to the Seventh-day Adventist thing, we weren't allowed to dance. I am not a good dancer, but she's super athletic and she has a natural rhythm about her. So
that's great.
Who knows? Maybe that will be her bad paying career. That's her passion thing, and I will support her through that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it does sound like you've actually found, I think that's the struggle in life, is to find something for work that you're also passionate about. It's nice when the pay is there, but when that's kind of secondary to what it is that you're interested in and actually want to do with your life, I think that's great that you've found, your place.
Yeah. Yeah. And people can be passionate about anything. I can talk to someone who says that they're an accountant and I'm like, oh, wow, do you love it? And they're like, yes, I get to meet all these people and do this and really get to know them and help them through these hard times.
Right.
And it's great. Awesome.
Yeah, more power to you, right? Because we're not all built that way with
but
the accounting.
But if someone's like, oh, I hate my job, I hate this, I'm like, I can't talk to you. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I don't have anything to relate. So I think it's just about finding what moves you and what you can, I mean, it sounds like the cheesiest thing in the world, but like, how are you going to change the world, whether your world is, your tiny corner and, the bottom 2/3 of Southeast Napa, or your world is the actual world? Your actions and your job and your career has an impact. And I think it's important for people to be invested in that. So. Right.
Yeah. Excuse me. And what do you think it is about animals? Because I see this. I think I know why. I think it is, that animals kind of like pull our heartstrings and really get to us. Why is that? Because you see some people, they're willing to walk past, a homeless person on the street and let them starve, et cetera. But they would never do that to an animal. What is it about animals that do that to us?
I think because people see animals as pure, and it is true. So, an animal will never, and I mean, there's a few exceptions, but an animal will never lie to you. An animal will never deceive you or double back or make what you see is what you get. Yeah. And people hold on to that because you can't, with humans, okay, so they're nice to me today. What does that mean? And it's so complicated. With animals, it's just love. And even if it's one-sided, you loving the animal, they either accept it or they don't. So there's that part of it. And them not lying to you is a huge thing, I think. And there's something else I used to always say. I can't remember what it is now about why animals are so much better than people. I'll think of it probably in the middle of the night.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the thing that I had in my brain about, why that is about animals was kind of very similar to the same thing. They're just always real. There's nothing fake about them. If they don't want to talk to you or whatever, they just wander off, but again, when they do want to spend time with you, like you said, with the lion laying down and, licking their paw, just choosing to spend time with you, I think, I love the realness of them. And one of the things that I most admire, I have 3 dogs. One of them is a little Chihuahua, and she's like my little baby, my little princess. But it's kind of nice. They don't talk. Sometimes we go all day, and all we hear is just the noise of everything. And sometimes it's nice just to be with, your pet or some other animal, and they're just not talking. You're just spending time, but you're getting a chance to decompress, even though you're actually spending time with a living thing. Yeah, because you don't get that a lot with children. Even no matter how much I love my children,
Right.
But there's
need something. There's always a motive. There's always
Yeah, there's always something going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely animals are a weird thing, and people definitely anthropomorphize a lot which is giving human characteristics to animals. I see that all the time. People are like, look at zoos, they look at the lion and they're like, oh, he's so sad. Look at him. He's just laying there. I'm like, yes, they actually sleep between 15 and 18 hours a day. And what you didn't see earlier was his keeper spending 2 hours stuffing meat into a little jolly ball thing so that he could chase it around before the zoo opened, and have a great time. And now he's exhausted and taking his 12-hour nap. So no, he's not sad.
Yeah.
He's the most happy lion he could ever be. So that, something that happens in the public with people think zoos are so bad. And we as zookeepers are generally better with animals than people, so we're bad at communicating what is really going on to the public. So I don't blame the public really for hating us and thinking I've been called a million names, and I'm like, trust me, I have spent more hours crying over these animals than you ever would consider. But we do so much for them and people just don't see it. So
yeah.
The anthropomorphizing thing is interesting, but at the same time, it can be used beneficially. Like you said, like, them just coming and laying down next to you, like, oh, they're content, they're happy. That's good. So. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for, I think, just over an hour now, or just about. So we'll probably wrap it up.
I probably rambled all over the place.
Oh, not at all. This is great. This is exactly why I started this show, was to talk to people exactly like you. We don't hear this that often. It's great to talk to someone who's actually spent a lot of time in a field and to be able to pull out some of those life lessons that are learned through, random things that, complete strangers do in their life. That's exactly why I started the show, and why, and kind of why I'm really passionate about, just getting to know people. And I really appreciate your time today. And it's great that you're no longer a stranger. And I really hope that everything works out for you. And I hope you get your motorcycle and you have many, many adventures in your life.
Yeah. I think, motorcycles and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, Katelyn, you too. Have a good night. Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Bye. And there you have it, folks. Katelyn Toole. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Stranger Conversations podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on the conversation. And don't forget, you'll find extra content on all of our social media and our YouTube channel as well. I'll link to all of those in the show notes. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe to this podcast so we can continue to share the lives and lessons of those around us, hidden in plain sight. That's all for today, but stay tuned for the conversation.